If there's one topic I saw popping up more and more again recently, it's the Discord about modern gaming being worse than back in the day. Which isn't even that hard to prove. Just look at the last decade and games like Overwatch compared to Overwatch 2, with the former being a standard full-price game that, granted, already was criticized itself for introducing a controversial microtransaction system, but you could still easily unlock everything in the game through gameplay, and for people that actually paid extra ensured the game delivering free updates with new characters and maps. Compared to Overwatch 2, which only launched with 2 new characters, changed its model to free-to-play, removed the relatively fair skin unlock system and replaced it by a carbon copy of every other in-game shop these days, while also launching the game in early access, cancelling the biggest selling point of a sequel half a year after release, and now repackaging the gutted remains in $15 packages every few months. Obviously also being massively downsized compared to what the original promised. But that's obviously not the only example. And yes, I'm still mad about it. There are dozens upon dozens of games releasing every year that are launching half-baked, with missing features, broken promises, and sometimes they even launch the wrong version of the game. For some reason, publishing an older build that's clearly unfinished. Like seriously, how did that happen? It seems like there is just no care anymore for releasing games actually finished. They just get released in states like these, sometimes completely unplayable, with all having the same apology PNG after the game release and everyone publicly made fun of it. Probably already prepared preemptively, with a promise of fixing it down the line. One thing I also want to bring up while talking about these games launching in completely unacceptable states, we recently had an increase in base price for most games. They went up $10 because of rising development costs. While the industry is still breaking record profit after record profit each year without any price increases. The promise was the assurance of higher and more consistent quality due to them earning more money. But like we already talked about, this simply is not the case. Games are releasing in similar states than before. I'd even argue in worse states ever since the prices increased. Some of the most notable examples of $70 games so far are games like Demon's Souls, a 1-to-1 PS3 game remake that added nothing to the original and only overhauled the graphics. The cross-gen Sony titles like Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok that want you to pay $10 extra for slightly more pretty versions of the same game. The annual sports games, because those are known for being really hard and expensive to develop. Forspoken, a game that was memed to death to such a degree that it led to the development studio being closed down and merged into other Square Enix studios not even a month after release, and Redfall. I hope I don't have to explain why that's not a good game to prove that games deserve to suddenly cost more than before. And those are only the first few games that came to my mind. I could probably talk about this one thing alone and why I'm so against it for days. The entire industry is reaching a breaking point. It really feels like it has not been about making just good game anymore for quite a while. Everything feels stagnant, with basically no new innovations in game design and gameplay. The biggest innovations we have nowadays are new methods to drain more money out of a player base, and nothing ever will change about this, because people are still playing these games and buying into it. And it's not like I'm any better. In the first week of Honkai Star Rail's release, I have spent like €50 on the game because I desperately wanted to have Sele as a party member. There's a reason why all of these games have the same UI now, the same shop structure, the same schemes, the same buzzwords, the same price even. Because it works. We as humans like these kinds of dopamine rushes. Of getting a rare item in a loot box. Of buying a limited time item to show off to our friends, to look cool in a game you play often. If it wouldn't work, it would die down, just like other gaming fads did. At this point, nothing will change until it starts being regulated by a government body. If you ever wanted to know why suddenly so many games stopped incorporating loot boxes almost simultaneously, now you know. Gaming has reached a point where some are actually hoping for a second great crash of the video game industry, where the greediness of companies got so out of hand that it led to everything collapsing into itself. And who can blame them? I am so sick of being sold on nothing but broken promises, fake trailers and get-rich-quick schemes, while also constantly seeing the actual developers and people who work on these products being treated like exposable dirt. But here's the thing. In my honest opinion, especially in the current year of 2023, I can just say that I think that the only people who are currently claiming that gaming got worse are people too ignorant to actually know what they are talking about. And if you're one of these people that think the gaming got worse, don't get mad at me and let me actually try to explain before you make your obligatory comment about why I suck so much. Oh wait, more people would drive engagement and push this video. So, grrr, your opinion is doo-doo, get mad. I am of the belief that we are currently in a gaming peak. Because yeah, if you only play AAA games, yes, I would also say that gaming in some ways definitely got worse, even though I'd still debate it here. But if you decide to step out of the comfort zone and look at everything non-AAA, you will find a place that's going to enlighten you to such a degree that you will never even dare again to claim that gaming got worse. Expanding your scope just the slightest bit opens you up to such an amazing world of experiences. Every day there are at least a dozen new games releasing from new independent game devs that want to establish themselves in the industry. Games with very experimental art style, with one creative idea stretched to its absolute limits, from people that just understood and mastered their genre, that want to hook you and pull you into the worlds. And yes, I know they aren't as bombastic as some AAA games. I know they also don't look as hyper-realistic and all that other fun stuff people care for besides gameplay in these games. But ever since I opened myself up more to indie games, I felt an emptiness inside of me. And I honestly have to say that I am quite shocked that there still are people that apparently don't play indie games, or at least don't take them as seriously. Which just really makes me sad. Big budget AAA games have to play it more safe to turn a profit these days. And not only because greedy companies want to make more money. No, some games have gotten so big they just can't afford to take higher risks these days. Resulting in a barrage of semi-looking, semi-realistic action games with similar structures and gameplay mechanics. And if they actually dare to try something more cartoony, it looks like the most popular current non-realistic game. And I think this is where indie games shine the most. Being smaller scale allows them to experiment, to have different art styles and mechanics. Limitation just breeds creativity. And I'd rather take a small 8 to 12 hour game with an interesting art style and premise over the next Ubisoft open world with 5 hours of content stretched over 100. And even with just the AAA games this year, have you been sleeping under a rock? 2023 has given us some of the best releases we had in years. While yes, the year had a rough start, holy hell has 2023 been a gift that kept on giving. Street Fighter 6 just released and blew everyone away with its amazing gameplay and a story campaign with the best character creator in existence. This is not for debate. Tears of the Kingdom is still an outstanding game that, honestly, makes Breath of the Wild feel almost obsolete with all the things it added and improved over the previous release. Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space Remake are peak survival horror at its finest. Bayonetta Origins is just beautiful. Hi-Fi Rush came out of nowhere and just turned into the best rhythm game ever created. Fire Emblem, Dead Island, Diablo. Holy hell! I cannot remember a last time when I genuinely had no clue what would even be nominated for Game of the Year. There are so many amazing great games already, and that's only the first half. Final Fantasy 16 is releasing like today, and it already looks like it's going to be the return of Final Fantasy being the best of its kind. And so many more big releases coming. Originally, this video really was planned as me shilling some great indie titles I have played lately, but I just cannot deny what an amazing year this has been so far for video games. Every year has some amazing titles coming out, and also some stinkers. Some more than others, but there's no time where there are only good games releasing or only bad ones. This was always the case, so why are the people claiming that gaming got worse? For the same reason those people are saying it for everything else. Rose-tinted glasses for a simpler time, where everything just was better. But if you actually look back, you will soon start to notice that it mostly was not better, and it's just your brain tricking you by deliberately forgetting the bad parts. Yeah, some games are launching broken and take months to be fixed through updates. Well, back in the day, they couldn't update the game. You just had to buy the same game again, in a new edition with all the fixes. Microtransactions? How about splitting the player base with the overpriced map packs? The industry always was trying to nickel and dime you. You just forgot about it and are now only remembering the high points. So maybe instead of whining on the internet about how you just don't like gaming as much as you did in the teens, consider spreading your wings. And even after all this, we live in a golden time of accessibility of old games. Maybe buy some re-releases of old classics on your platform of choice. Like seriously, just buy System Shock on Steam. It's like $10 and it's basically the birthplace of some of the best shooters out there like BioShock and Dishonored. There even is a remake that released recently for the people that don't want to play a game that's not only looks like it's 30 years old but also controls like it. Or maybe just play one of your games you bought years ago and never actually got to play. or just download an emulator and go ham with all of these beautiful games that got released over the last 4 decades. I promise you, you will find enough games to keep yourself entertained until the literal day you die.